Hello everyone and welcome to another most exciting game. It's a game from round 8 of the Croatian Grand Chester being played in Zagreb. It's Ding Liren versus Magnus Carlsen, and well, yesterday Carlsen defeated Jan Nepomniachtchi for the first time in his life, and now he has the black pieces against Ding Liren, another player who he never defeated in classical time format. So far they've played six or seven games, and all of them were drawn. If you look at Rapid and Blitz games, then Carlsen has huge advantages. He had that match against Ding, I believe, somewhere during the beginning of 2018, and he really crushed him. But as classical time format goes, it's all draws. Now, I would just like to mention before we check out the game, and it is a very nice game. I visited the Grand Chess Tour today. I arrived there some hour and a half before the game started. I thought maybe I'd get a chance maybe to talk to some of the players, or maybe even get a photo with them or something, but everyone was arriving really late for the game, like a few minutes before the game started, and there really wasn't time to even ask any of the questions you've written in the comments or anything. I will try to do that on Saturday when I will visit once again, but I did get 10 out of 12 players to sign the chessboard that I brought with me, so here it is. You can check it out. Here are some of the signatures. There you have it, if you're interested. Pretty much everyone put a signature on a light square. Only one person did it on a dark square. You can try and guess whose signature it is on a dark square. And yeah, the ones I missed were Wesley Sol and Levon. Wesley came really early, but he didn't seem like he was interested in pretty much anything. I think he was just very focused on his game against Hikaru today. And Levon was really late for the game. He was running, and I tried to hold out the board, and I was holding the pen, maybe if he wanted to put a signature on it while running, but he said that he was so late that there was not enough time even for that. So I will try to get the two signatures on Saturday when I will visit the Grand Chester once again and complete my board, which will be very nice, of course. I still haven't decided what I will do with the board, but after I have completed, collecting signatures, then I will decide what to do with it. That being said, let's check out this very nice game. And also, I met some very nice subscribers today. Some of them wanted, to talk a little. Some of them wanted to have some nice selfies, and it was just a very exciting experience for me. The game. Ding has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. Of course, you all know where this is going. Knight to f6, we have c4, e6, knight f3, and we have the queen's gambit decline, the d5. Pretty much the same as it was 100 years ago during the Capablanca saga. We have g3 by Ding, going for some sort of a Catalan setup, with bishop to e7, bishop to g2, Magnus castles, and Ding, of course, also castles. We have d captures on c4, grabbing the gambited pawn, and now queen to c2, preparing maybe to recapture here. Magnus defends it, b5. This is one of the rare lines where it is actually okay to defend the gambited pawn. a4, a flank attack. You want to challenge black's decision to defend the gambited pawn. And now b4. And now knight f to d2. This is the main line. You attack the pawn and also open up a discovery against the rook here. So Magnus defends it with knight to d5, and now knight captures on c4. You win your pawn back, and the game continues. With c5 for Magnus, now a nice flank attack to the center, d captures on c5, and there is one game with this exact same line where bishop captures on c5 was played, but here bishop to a6 by Magnus. And Magnus came really prepared for this game. He really just blitzed out all of his moves, and Ding was spending a lot of time. With knight back to e3, offering a trade here, and here you don't want to trade. If you trade here, we're just going to capture bishop here, and he's going to have a very strong pawn here. The bishop will be very nice here. You will not be able to save your rook. So with knight to d7, Magnus prepares now rook to c8, and now we have knight captures on d5 with e captures on d5, and now you don't want to capture here and give up your c5 pawn, even at the price. Well, of course you can always go rook c8 and you will pick up the pawn later, but Ding first goes c6. So already a very nice pass pawn on c6 with rook to c8 by Magnus first. Now of course you cannot capture as the pawn is pinned, and now bishop to f4. You could have captured on d5 first, but Ding says there's time for that. I'm just going to play bishop to f4, take away the e5 square from Magnus' knight, so he can go knight e5, and then I'm going to decide what to do with the pawn. And as the bishop is controlling c7, pawn to c7 is the plan. So knight to c5 now by Magnus, and now c7 with an attack on the queen. Queen to d7. And now knight to d2, you have to bring your other pieces into the game as well. And here you want to get rid of the c7 pawn. So how do you do it? And it's very interesting, Magnus was just blitzing out move here. So it was, I think all this was still preparation for Magnus. You could try and win it with bishop to d6, just trade the bishop here that's defending it. Next move you're going to capture. The problem with this move is that it doesn't achieve what you want it to achieve because of bishop to h3. Now you're threatening the queen and the rook if the queen moves. So you want queen captures bishop, and then you get bishop captures on d6 while you are still guarding the c7 pawn. So what black could do is knight to e6, but then you open up the queen's defense of the pawn again. And now white can just trade, bishop captures, f captures, bishop captures here, queen captures, and after rook a to c1, your pawn is nicely protected. So you will not be able to win the pawn this way. So Magnus played, believe it or not, he played g5. And this is, I believe, still preparation, as he really did not spend any time here. With bishop here, f6, and now the bishop finally has to leave the defense of the c7 pawn. With bishop to d4, and now comes rook captures on c7, finally eliminating Ding's very strong passed c pawn. With queen to d1 by Ding, getting the queen out of this diagonal, you also want to bring your rook into the game, and now knight back to e6. And you don't have a good way of saving your bishop. If you just move it, then this is coming, you're going to lose the bishop this way. So just knight to b3. And here Magnus plays bishop to c4, and bishop to c4 is just a beautiful move, because here there's a lot of tension in the position. There's this tension, the knight can capture bishop, the bishop can capture knight, but all of the tension goes in Carlsen's favor, and this is what you always want to have in chess. When there's tension on the board, you want to be the person creating the tension. So every move Ding has to calculate. Okay, I might want to play h3, or I might want to play rook a to c1, but he constantly has to calculate, okay, rook a c1, but then Carlsen can capture here, Carlsen can capture here, and well, all of this goes into Carlsen's favor. So a very nice move, creating a lot of tension. With knight, but also with the threat, of course, the bishop captures knight, the queen will have to leave the defense of the bishop on d4, and you will lose the bishop here. So it's also comes with a threat. With knight to a5 by Ding, attacking the bishop here, and now knight captures on d4, with queen captures on d4, and now king to g7. So what do you do here? Here Ding played rook f to c1, just bring that rook into the game, but Carlsen said that this he didn't really agree with this move, because he thought that there was no reason to give up the e2 pawn. Sure, okay, after the e2 pawn is captured, you will at some point win back the d5 pawn, but Carlsen thought that maybe Ding will play bishop to f3, that it was a nice move, okay, Ding went rook f to c1, and Carlsen decided to capture it with bishop captures on e2, rook captures on c7 now, queen captures on c7, and now rook to e1. There's time to win this pawn here, but you also have this very nice threat. Rook captures bishop, and also there is pressure against the bishop on e7 here. So for example, if Carlsen captures knight here, then you capture this bishop, and you also have a very nice position, threatening to capture on d5, threatening the bishop here. So first, Magnus gets rid of the bishop on e7. First, bishop to c5 with an attack on Ding's queen. With queen captures on d5, Ding now wins back the d5 pawn, and now rook to e8. Magnus not interested in any trades, especially not for the silly knight on a5. He wants to keep his bishop pair, as if if the pieces get traded down, then you will reach an endgame where Carlsen will have a bishop pair, and of course with game on both sides of the board, bishop pair will in most cases have the advantage. Here, Ding has to decide on what to do. Ding here decides to trade queens. With queen to b7, Magnus accepts. With queen captures, knight captures, and now, of course, he doesn't want to give up the bishop pair, so bishop to f8. He just tucks it in for later. With bishop to c6 now, and rook to e7. With f3, preparing king to f2 to start bringing the king into the game, and now bishop to c4. with rook captures on e7, bishop captures on e7, king to f2, and now f5. And this is what we've talked about. Now we have, well, the material on the board is equal. Both players 5 pawns, 3 on the king side, 2 on the queen side, and both players, well, 2 pieces. But the difference is Magnus has the bishop pair. The game is on both sides of the board, so of course black has the advantage. As the knight, it will take a bit longer for knight to reach both sides of the board. So normal. Ding improves the activity of his king with king to e3 and now bishop to g8. Now Magnus tucks this bishop back for later use as well. King to d3 and now g4. Here Magnus makes sure that this h2 pawn stays there for the rest of the game. Now it's a backwards pawn, it's a really weak pawn, and Ding will have to be very careful about, well, defending it, which will really be seen in the next move. Here you want to play something like f4, even f captures on g4 maybe, but f4 probably better. But here Ding played knight to a5. He wants to get this knight back into the game, but by playing knight to a5, he also allows Carlsen a very important square. So feel free to pause the video here and continue this endgame with black while I enjoy a nice sip of my water. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent endgame player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the knight, when it left b7, it also left the defense of the c5 square. And it's a very important square. Magnus played bishop to c5, and now you see his plan. He wants to play bishop g1 and, well, attack the h2 pawn, as now it's a really weak pawn. You cannot advance it, as on the previous move, Magnus also played g4. So Ding decides to go after the f5 pawn and the pawns on the king's side. First, knight c4 with bishop to g1. Magnus continues with his plan. Knight to e3, going after f5, and now bishop to e6. Not allowing this with f captures on g4, f captures on g4, and now king to e2. So what do you play here now with black? Of course, not bishop captures on h2. This would be a mistake. You know, Fischer took on h2 once, and that did not end well. If you play bishop captures on h2, king f2 will trap the bishop. So next move you have to play something. You don't have time for h5. If you play h5, just king g2 and the bishop is trapped. You don't have time for h4. So first, after king to e2, Magnus plays h5, and now next move he will capture here, as he will have h4 ready. You should always prepare before you capture on h2. With bishop to d5 now, offering a trade, but first Magnus declines. Bishop to d7 with an attack against the a4 pawn. Bishop back to b3, and only now, when everything is ready, bishop captures on h2. With king to f2, preparing to trap the bishop, but Magnus, of course, does not allow it. With h4, and now, if you try knight f1 to somehow achieve something, then h captures on g3 will be perfectly fine. Knight captures, and, well, this bishop can now either capture the knight, or when the knight moves, just retreat, and black will enjoy his very nice extra pass pawn, and a protected one at that. So after h4, we have g captures on h4, and now what do you play here? g3 wouldn't be all that great, because even though it seems nice, you will not be able to create any threats with bishop to c6, because Ding made sure of that. The knight and bishop control the d5 square. So after you remove the king, any bishop to c6 will be met with bishop d5. And now, even if you capture on a4, it's not enough. b3, you have to move the bishop back, and now you get knight f1. And you will eliminate these guys here, as they are on dark squares. Black will be helpless to prevent it. Let's say a5, you're just gonna capture here. Capture, and it's 2 pawns each, light square bishop each, king each, it's a draw. So, after g captures on h4, first prepare g4, first get the bishop out of the way. Bishop to e5, and only now knight to c4, Ding attacks the bishop, and now first g3 check. King to g1, and now bishop to f4, controlling all of the squares the knight can use to get back to the king side. With bishop to d1, and now bishop to c6, grabbing hold of this beautiful diagonal. Now the bishop and the pawn are controlling all of the squares around the white king, so you will not be able to go up the board. And now, as everything is, very nicely done on the king side, Magnus is now ready to take his king over to the queen side and win some material there with the king. With b3 by Ding, and now king to h6. With a5, and now comes bishop to e4. Again, if this bishop now moves, then even bishop to c2 will be enough to win material. With king to f1, king to g7. Now Magnus King is coming all the way to the queen side. He decided that the h pawn is not a threat. With king to g1, now comes king to f6, king to f1. Ding has no better moves other than to repeat them. With king to e6, now comes now comes h5 by Ding, king to d5, and now a6. So that pawn is really far away, but it will be very hard to get rid of the a7 pawn as it is on a dark square. Ding only has a light square bishop, and it's, well, not likely that this knight can ever reach it. You can't go something like this because of this pawn, and you will not be able to go something like this because the bishop controls this diagonal, thus the c6 square. So king to d4 by Magnus, with bishop to g4 now, and now king to c3. Going after the pawn here, with bishop to e6, now hoping that Magnus will capture on b3, and then you will have some nice discoveries, but just bishop to c2, of course, you will now capture with the bishop. With knight to a5 by Ding, bishop to c7 attacking the knight. We have knight to b7, and only now does Carlsen play bishop to d3. This comes with check. We have king to g1 by Ding, and it was in this position after Ding played king to g1 that the players shook hands, or so I believe, as there is pretty much nothing more to do here. There are a lot of ways you can win this. You can just grab material, but there's an even better line, as now all of the Ding's pieces are so far away. You can just play bishop to e4, and then you have a very nice forcing sequence. King to f1, for example, you will go g2 check, and after the king moves, let's say king to f2, now you get bishop to h2, and, well, this pawn now queens, and there's no stopping that. So yeah, after this king to g1 move, Ding resigned, and a very nice victory for Magnus Carlsen, and it's the first victory Magnus Carlsen ever achieved against Ding Liren in classical time format, which is really insane, as it's also with the black pieces, same as against Jan Nepomniachtchi in round 7, also with the black pieces. The two players he never defeated, now he beat them both in one tournament with the black pieces, which is just insane. I think now in live ratings he is somewhere close to his old highest ever rating. I think it's 2882 is his record, or close, and he's very close to that now. So will he cross 2900? Well, if he continues playing like this, he most probably will, but we'll just have to wait and see. We're not going to show the standings, as I'm going to show more games from this round, and then we're going to discuss the standings. But as he was the sole leader in the previous round, and now he won, obviously he's still the sole leader, but we're going to check out the other results as well. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Taras Karpiak, Evis Marrero, Victor Tonias, Jenny Orwell, and Michael Castano for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing this short coverage of this very nice event, checking up on your suggestions, and of course continuing the Capablanca saga. So yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend. Week. Sorry about that.